So, today I want to talk about Joe Biden's response to federal abortion rights being overturned by the Supreme Court. During the past 3 weeks, the Biden administration has had ample time to attempt to respond to Roe v. Wade being overturned. It is sufficient to say that his response has been lackluster at best. Far from using broad political power and creative solutions that should have been prepared well in advance, we have seen him repeat the same tired rhetoric with the assumption that it will pacify people. While I understand that his position in the executive branch is limited in its reach and its scope, it is his responsibility as the executive branch to keep the judicial in check when it's causing active harm to people. And there are methods that are within his power that would at least make it seem like he was trying to do something. And maybe, just maybe, actually improve the lives and conditions of some people. What I'd like to do today is to offer some potential ideas about what Biden could be doing and contrast those with his actual actions. So, to start with, one of the options available for President Biden is an idea proposed by New York State Governor Hochul. She had suggested that the president mobilize resources on federal property within states that have banned abortion. And we have now on screen an article where we see a description of her plan. We'd ask that you consider your ability to use federal facilities, Hochul told Biden on Friday during a White House brainstorming session with Democratic governors aimed at identifying options for protecting women's access to abortion. But a White House official said the proposal, while well intentioned, risked putting women and providers in legal jeopardy in state courts. The official spoke on the condition of anonymity. Biden didn't directly respond to Hochul's ideas during the public portion of Friday's session. However, Hochul cited veterans hospitals, military bases, and other places where the federal government controls the jurisdiction, in states that are, quote, hostile to women's rights, as potential venues where the Biden administration should step in. Now, the idea that this would put people in legal jeopardy seems counterintuitive to me, as many people are already in legal jeopardy with their states simply by seeking care. This includes leaving their state or having medications delivered. The fact that this would occur on federal lands should be enough for the federal government to at least fight hard to make sure that pregnant individuals and providers are protected and kept anonymous from state governments. Further, if given no other choice, many would likely take the risk rather than facing the alternative, especially if traveling out of state is not an option. At the very least, this would give a lot of people an active choice that may have just lost it. The fact that Biden dismissed this idea so plainly is frustrating at best. Not only is Governor Hochul's idea bold, it directly challenges the Republicans in these states and shows that the federal government has people's backs, even if the states have abandoned people. It would take the fight into these states' territory, and at the very least, it would show a sincere attempt to protect those who would be harmed by the Supreme Court's decision. If properly implemented, such a policy could actually see an increase in access in certain locations, even compared to years prior. Instead, Biden has opted for a far weaker response of sending mobile clinics to the border of such states. And we actually have here from the statement that was released from the White House for the recent executive order. The administration will ensure the safety of patients, providers, and third parties, and to protect the security of other entities that are providing, dispensing, or delivering reproductive healthcare services. This charge includes efforts to protect mobile clinics, which have been deployed to the borders to offer care for out-of-state patients. So they're able to provide care for people on these borders at these mobile clinics, but they're not willing to do it in-state on federal lands. And I don't understand why this weak response is the option that they chose for. This really doesn't make a lot of sense, considering that it will amount to the same thing in a lot of instances, and a lot of the same legal battles will occur. Yes, technically speaking, the states can argue that they have jurisdiction within their borders, but if it's on federal land, you can make the argument and fight against that. And at least, then some more people will have choice that wouldn't have had it otherwise. But again, this is the kind of response that Biden takes, the safe one that often leaves people in more harm than good. And the problem with such a move as this one is that it still may require people to travel upwards of 600 miles in order to get the care that they need. Given that many cannot take off work, have children to take care of, or simply just can't afford to travel, this response is inadequate. Now, another option that's available for Biden is to try to adjust the Supreme Court. He could do this in one of two ways. First, he could publicly advocate for the House of Representatives to impeach several of the Supreme Court justices for perjury, given that their statements to Congress before being seated on the bench seem to indicate that they would not, in fact, overturn Roe. Clarence Thomas, in addition, could be also impeached because of his wife's alleged connection to January 6th, or any of the other connections that his wife seems to have to things like the Federalist Society and a lot of the other programs that have been funded through Republican efforts. Or perhaps more boldly, Biden could attempt to pack the court and increase the number of justices. While both of these are likely to fail, if Biden were to demonstrate the necessity of these actions and consistently advocate for them, it would at least demonstrate some resolve on Biden's part, especially when compared to his recent planned judicial appointment. Because the unfortunate reality is, Biden had just recently planned to appoint a Federalist Society-approved anti-choice judge to a federal position not long ago. And this occurred after the leaked draft had been made. We actually have here the Office of Kentucky's Governor, Andy Beshear, had shared emails confirming that Joe Biden intended to nominate Chad Meredith, a conservative lawyer who had previously defended anti-abortion legislation, to a federal judgeship. More than 7 weeks after the draft Supreme Court opinion overturning Roe leaked, the Biden White House was apparently done vetting and had decided upon nominating Meredith to a judgeship in the Eastern District of Kentucky as part of a deal with McConnell. They are still making deals with Republicans to get stuff done. This is what they're doing instead of, overthrowing the filibuster or attempting to take any of these drastic measures that need to be taken in order to protect people's lives. This is the type of compromises that they don't have the luxury of right now. And making deals with McConnell isn't going to solve anything. And the fact of the matter is, there's been no comment at the time of this recording of this video on the supposed deal, nor has there been any explanation on what Biden was even thinking when potentially making such a decision, especially after we had already gotten the leaked court draft. This is just unjustifiable. And yet, he has made no comment or no justification for his actions. Now, finally, another option for Biden could be to actually work with activists and educators in order to create a proper education campaign about the importance and necessity of abortion access. By giving a platform to these activists and educators, Biden would make it known that the Democratic Party had finally drawn a line in the sand and decided to stand with people and taken an aggressive and protective position on this issue. At the very least, this would provide public information on the importance and severity of these issues and actually incentivize people to want to support the Democrats, since they would actually be doing something that would actually attempt to benefit people. The education on these resources and to, talk about the full extent of why this is important information to reach out to voters, to make this a major issue in the heads and minds of people, that make them actively want to go out to the voting booth and say, I need to make sure this happens. Call the Republicans out, call out what's been going on, and demand that people, learn about these instances and what's going on when it comes to abortion access. By doing this, it would cement the Democratic Party as actually doing something. And yeah, people might actually get off their, butts on election day and actually go out and vote. They might actually fill in the mail-in ballots. They might actually do what they need to do in order to secure more senators, if that's what the Democrats' plan is in the long term. But they're not giving anything. They're just expecting everything in return. And instead of this, we've seen Biden condemn activists and instead use these protests as a distant prop to demand more funding and more votes for Democrats without giving anything back in return. And we've seen this through something that was said by the White House communications director on Saturday. Joe Biden's goal in responding to Dobbs is not to satisfy some activists who have been consistently out of step with the mainstream of the Democratic Party. It's to deliver help to women who are in danger and assemble a broad-based coalition to defend a woman's right to choose now, just as he assembled such a coalition to win during the 2020 campaign. There is so much wrong with this. The activists that they're referring to are people who've worked in clinics, are people who have been working on these projects to keep Roe intact for decades now. They are literally criticizing the very people who are providing the most care and support for this issue. Therefore, they are not doing what they said. They are not protecting people who are pregnant and protecting those who are in danger from these issues. They are, in fact, ruling from above in a way that is not in any way conducive to the needs of people right now. The people on the ground, the activists, and those who have been working in clinics know far more about what is needed than anybody else. And the goal of the Biden administration should be to respond by listening and emphasizing those voices rather than dismissing them and so scornfully talking about them. The fact remains that even if Biden is limited in what he can do in the executive, there are still tangible things he could be doing in order to secure access to abortion, and it looks like he's not even trying. He has chosen to not only not do the things we need him to be doing, but has actively worked against these ideas in a way that do not inspire any sort of faith in him. Where he could be providing access, he's providing token gestures that force people to travel great distances. Where he could be demanding accountability from judges, he was making deals with the Republicans involving anti-choice judge, and where he could be working with activists, he has actively scorned them and made sure that their voice was registered as being, quote, not within the step of the mainstream Democratic Party. This is the Joe Biden that we are seeing, and he is woefully underprepared to deal with this situation and has actively chosen to take steps against what is needed in this moment. So with that said, if you've enjoyed watching this video, consider liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment, as well as consider joining my Discord where we have wonderful conversations on topics like these. If you're in the financial place to do so, and only if you're in the financial place to do so, please do consider supporting me on Patreon, especially as political content like this can often be demonetized on YouTube. The links for everything that I mentioned are in the description down below. With that said, my name is Anarchist Tara. Thank you for watching.